everyone. This is the Guru of Inspiration, Michelle Hammond, and I am listening to the Lunchin with Lisa show. Come on in and join me, y'all.
You are now listening to Lunchin with Lisa show.
Well, all right. Hey, this is Prince Dejour, and you're listening to the Lunchin with Lisa show. You gotta love it.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lunchin with Lisa. I'm excited about this whole month of March because we're also celebrating Women's History Month. And we've had some wonderful guests come on the show, but it's specifically for the month of March. I love celebrating women who are doing some amazing things. It gives me a chance to kind of do a personal shout out. And we again are excited about our guest today. But I wanted to just give you a little background on what I've been doing. But before I do that, I wanted to just do happy birthdays to everyone who's having a birthday. My son had a birthday last week, and I'm excited about it. I always love celebrating birthdays. I am that cheerleader. But I wanted to say happy birthday to everyone. I also wanted to say happy anniversary to those who are celebrating love. I am a mushy gushy kind of person, so happy anniversary to all those people out there celebrating love. It's not just on Valentine's Day, it is any day. And I also wanted to say congratulations to anybody who's stepped out of their comfort zone and decided to start that business, decided to go to that class, whatever it is that they're doing. That is something that they've always wanted to do. Congratulations to you. Job well done. So with that being said, I wanted to mention that there are a couple of things that I'm involved in that I'm excited about that I wanted to tap into. First of all, like I said, happy Women's History Month from the Lunchin with Lisa show. This is a time where you should be tagging any of the ladies that you know out there that are doing some wonderful things, or just to say thank you for all that you do for your children in your home, for your community, whatever it is. But shout out somebody and just say happy Women's History Month. I also wanted to let you know that I will be speaking at the Passion, Purpose, and Peace Summit. It's a 3-day virtual event, and I actually get to talk about, and you all know that communication is my jam. I love to talk about communication, so I'll be talking about the power of words and asking the question, are you helping to heal or to hurt? So I'm looking forward to doing that. That's coming up in April 13th through the 15th. In addition to that, I've had the opportunity to be part of a couple of collaborations. So I am the forward writer for Women of Virtue Walking in Excellence. Is a 52-week journal, Exceed, Discover, Recover, Release by Dr. Tashika Green. She does an amazing job with all that she does in the world of education. And she has an event coming up this month, but I had the honor to be asked to do the foreword. That is huge to me. I was totally nervous, even though I've written books and things, but being asked to do the foreword is a huge honor. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also working on another anthology called Imperfectly Fierce and Focused. Rising above your imperfections while still crushing your goals. Visionary Kiever Murdaugh is doing this piece, and actually Touched by Dove Publishing, which is our publishing company, is actually publishing this anthology. But I was so taken by her presentation to the co-authors that I decided I wanted to raise my hand. I want to be a co-author too, because this seemed like a fascinating book. So I am also a co-author, so dual roles. I'm excited about it. So you all stay tuned. There's a lot going on this year in 2023. And I'm excited about it. So I did want to also mention that with the Power Shut Up, I had the wonderful opportunity to speak at the U.S. Department of Education and do a presentation on the power of shut up, the importance of communication. That was huge for me. It was well received and opened a few doors. So I'm excited about what's to come with that. So, without further ado, and to stay consistent with the amazing guests that we've had on Luncheon with Lisa, I want to introduce our guest today. So, I'm going to give you a little background. She's done so many amazing things, and I'm going to let her share a lot of it. But I'm going to give you a little taste of who we're getting ready to talk with. I think this will be fascinating. So, with a purposeful career in the education space spanning over more than 20 years, Professor Dr. Shauli, and I just lost the pronunciation. Please share with me so I get it right.
Yeah, it's Mukherjee.
Mukherjee. Dr. Shauli has dedicated her life towards promotion of child-centric and activity-oriented education. A passionate educationist and a global thought leader with a background of setting up and leading new age K through 12 schools. Dr. Shauli has been the founder principal of Adamas World School and STEM World School, and the first STEM school in West Bengal. Under her inspiring leadership, STEM World School has been ranked and awarded as the second best international day school in West Bengal by Education World. Dr. Shauli has also held senior academic and administrative positions in some of the reputed colleges of West Bengal. She ardently believes that the purpose and meaning of meaningful education is to develop lifelong learners, creative thinkers, and responsible global citizens who are confidently equipped to face the challenges of an uncertain and constantly unfolding future. Now, I have actually been on some platforms and listened to Dr. Shauli and have been fascinated with all that she does in the world of education. And because it's so important to everyday living, it's not just something that's seasonal. This is something that we have to be focused on all the time. And she is actually putting in the work daily with all that I see that you're doing. I wanted to welcome you first to the Luncheon with Lisa show. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. And we're looking forward to finding out what you have been doing in the world of education. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here on this platform today. And I would definitely like to say that you are an amazing woman and
Okay.
you're doing great stuff. So, especially in this particular month when we are celebrating, uh, you know, more power for womanhood.
That's right.
So, I would just like to say that more power to you and
Thank
the amazing work and initiatives that you're involved with.
Thank you so much. And I too have been, watching you move, looking at the things that you're doing, and thank you for all of your work as a mom. And I together, my husband and I have 7 children between us that we've moved through the education system, and the changes over the years. And even me being that mom as a PTA teacher in school and having that drive to want to be a part of the educational experience, but also experiencing times when I had to fall back and because the dynamics get different when mom is in the school all the time. Then I have to make some creative decisions on how far I go in, how much I come out, and it also depends on at what age group. I like the age group of the K through 12 because sometimes the college life is a whole different, you know, whole different area. But with K through 12, those are the times, and actually closer to kindergarten is when you have to get them started and get excited about education. So tell us a little bit about how you even decided to go into this lane.
I don't know how I decided, but uh, so since it has been almost 23 years now for me that I have been associated with the sector of education, well, now I feel that this is something which I have always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm a kind of a person who has turned her passion into her profession. So for me, uh, being in this particular profession day in and day out
Mm-hmm.
gives me a lot of energy, gives me a lot of positive vibes, you know, each and every single day. And the very fact and the very, feeling that I am empowered as an educator to touch, inspire, and impact the lives of so many people around me through the ennobling power of education. That is something which keeps me going. So, after 23 years now, I feel that this is what I was always meant to do.
Absolutely.
And this is something that I'm doing right now.
So tell me, and because I know you've done so much, it's like I don't even know where to start. But was there any particular when you got started in this in moving this forward? What were some of the challenges that you faced? Because I'm sure that kind of led you into different lanes of this. So, what was the first challenge that you ran across?
Well, a lot of challenges, I must say.
Right.
And for a few of them, I was not prepared. For a few, I was prepared because, uh, especially, when you work in the sector of education, you have to understand that our histories have changed, our geographies have changed. But sadly enough, and unfortunately, our education system has not changed. It has
Mm.
remained all the same. So it is still essentially a byproduct of the 19th century industrial revolution, which still promotes, a one size fits all
Mhm.
educational model where people still feel that the children have to be taught in the same manner, in the same day, and maybe the same thing, you
Mhm.
know. So it's absolutely not a wonder that, the children, they suffer under this pressure of conformity and
Mhm.
compliance. So our education system gives very, very little scope
Mhm.
for creativity and innovation, and it's built on the two pillars of conformity and compliance. So if you conform, if you comply, well, you will be termed as an A grader. But if
Mhm.
you're creative, if you're thinking out of the box, if you have the capability of divergent thinking, out of the box ideation, well, you will be, marked as somebody who is a little bit odd.
Mhm.
So sadly enough, the situation has not changed that much. So in keeping with that, I won't say that I was not prepared to face the challenges, because in the field of education, you have to deal with a lot of people who have a very, very restrictive mindset,
Mhm.
a kind of a mindset which will always oppose and block any kind of progressive initiatives when it comes to education. They still feel that the way in which we have been educated, so that is the way in which our children should be educated, and maybe our grandchildren should also be educated the same manner.
Right.
So, if you speak about the challenges, well, the first challenge was a typical mindset.
Mhm.
And I'm not only talking about people in general, but especially parents, and even unfortunately, surprisingly, a lot of teachers,
Mhm.
a lot of educators who are in the system. I have also found them quite resistant to
Mhm.
change. So that was a great, I would say, challenge and roadblock. But then I was sort of prepared that when you're trying to do something new and innovative, these are something which are like common things you have to face. But you have to make your way, because my vision was very clear. So I wanted to be a part of that kind of an education system which gives more importance to EQ rather than IQ,
Mm.
which gives more importance to the happiness quotient and passion quotient rather than intelligence quotient. A kind of a system which uh, gives you a lot of happiness and joy in being you rather than in following the footsteps of others. So I this particular vision was very clear in front of me.
Well, and I've heard you talk about this before, and I was so intrigued because I mean, you kind of speaking to me as a parent, being a creative, um, that I absolutely relate to that. I'm one of those people that feels like, more importantly than you know grades and things like that. It's very, very important. But more importantly is the morale of the room. If people are feeling good about themselves, feeling positive about themselves, because that's when you get the best performance out of them. And so when you mention creativity and education, I do feel like that at times those were very separate concepts. And I know when you were talking about it, you were kind of like they have to go hand in hand. So talk to us a little bit more about that, because I remember you talking about what you want to bring into the education process, because me as a creative mom, that was what my whole focus was. You know, whatever was going on at school, when they came home, it was about making it fun. And somehow, you know how sometimes the kids are singing songs and things like that and don't realize that they're learning because they're having a good time. And before you know it, they know things and they don't even know how they learned them. It was funny to speak to that. We were having a conversation with my 3-year-old grandson, and he mentioned the word excavator. And I have to be honest, I didn't even know what that was. And I am over 50, okay? And my husband was like, oh my goodness, because I said that is a huge word for a 3-year-old. And he even we had our grown children were in the room, and my husband was like, do you all know what that is? And they were like, no. And I said, where did you learn that word from? But I think it was one of the children's programs on YouTube actually talks about the cranes and the machines that dig and things like that. But they presented it in such a fun way that he was teaching us. And it was something that I don't even know that I've ever been taught, and I'm over 50. So the creativity in that is actually, it works. It really works. So can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Lisa, because we have to admit that each and every child is born with a unique blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
And each and every child is born creative. The problem is with our education system, which robs us of creativity and innovation as we grow up. Now, if you think deeply, you will definitely realize one very important facet about our education system. The system teaches us everything that is external to us. So it teaches us the history, the geography, how many earthquakes, how many mountains, hills, landscape, this, that. It teaches us anything about who we are. It doesn't teach us how to connect with our own deeper self, how to know ourselves at a level. So everything that is external to us is being taught to us. But what about who we are? What about our purpose?
Right.
What about the things that give us happiness?
Mm-hmm.
These are extremely intrinsic. If you have to think about or talk about a creative education system.
Right.
Creativity comes from 3 things, Lisa, according to me. You have to give ample scope to our young generation to explore the 3 essential P's, and that is play, passion, and purpose.
Okay.
It's a culmination of all these 3 P's that actually turn a person into a creative person, because a creative person is not only that kind of a person who experiments a lot, but he experiments keeping in mind the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what creativity is. Creativity, we often, misunderstand creativity as something which is very novel and new.
Right.
But that is a very, narrow concept of creativity. A creativity has to be something which is original, but also something which has a lot of value in it.
Absolutely.
But then, when I say that each and every child is born creative, but at the same time, it is our responsibility as educators and as parents to harness that creativity, to nurture that creativity in our children. And in order to do that, we have to be extremely sharp observers, which we are not.
Mm-hmm.
We are always busy in, indoctrinating or trying to preach or trying to tell them what they should do and what they should not do, but we do not observe them deeply. We have to learn ourselves to be very good observers. Once you
Oh,
start observing the kids, you will see a lot of traits in them. So you don't have to give anything from the external world to them.
right.
They have everything in them. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not meant to be fixed. They're not broken in the very first instance. That we have to fix them. No, we don't have to do that. We do not have that duty and responsibility.
Right. Right. I love what you said. You hit on something really keen, and I think maybe that's where we struggle. And you mentioned parents and the responsibility, and what probably makes this difficult sometimes is that we haven't even tapped into that for ourselves, which is why we don't pass that on because I mean innately that's how I move. It's creativity. I want to know. Self-awareness has always been very important to me, to find out who I am, how I move, why I do what I do. And so the conversations I've had with my children are usually in that direction. So even if they have a question about, well, mom, why this, why that, I kind of share just who I am and pull out their personality. You're the kind of person who, and we just have those conversations, or let them tell me, well, this is how I think about situations like this, because that's what you're talking about to me with the creativity, and them knowing who they are. Because to me, generally speaking, if you don't know who you are, I don't know how you can answer a whole lot of questions about anything, because we don't even know where you're pulling it from. So when you tapped into that, I was like, that's a key. So while we're pulling out the creativity with our students and the kids, parents need to also kind of pull up a chair and join the classroom. How about that? So, but I like what you said about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, one of the greatest problems that we see around us is that, uh, parents try to, after a particular age,
Hmm.
parents try to outsource parenting to the
Mm,
teachers, which is
yes.
absolutely something which is not to be done. I mean, it's a collective responsibility.
Yes.
Parents, educators, they go hand in hand,
Yep.
because one thing which our children are very, very accustomed with is to find out the linkage and the consistency of what they find in the school, and when they come back home, they find the same thing. So if
Mm,
they find a mismatch there, or they find a kind of a discrepancy there, their brains start thinking that, I mean, they cannot be receptive to that.
hmm.
So we have to understand all this, and hence I strongly feel that all parents are educators, and all educators should have that conscious parenting strategies in place.
Absolutely.
So these are the two things which are very, very closely interrelated. So if we have a kind of a system where the educators feel that parenting is something that is reserved for the parents, and the parents feel that teaching and education is something which is reserved for the educators, I
Right.
think that is where we are completely going wrong.
I absolutely agree. That's why I was really looking forward to having this conversation with you, because I've heard you talk about that before, and this to me kind of pushes the concept that parents and teachers really need to be working very closely together for that consistency. And you're right, it is, the word you used was outsourcing, and I was like, that's the perfect word, because I don't think that that's what parents think they're doing, but you're actually making it a separate situation. So when they go to school, that's totally separate from what we do at home. And you're kind of saying, no, these are all intertwined. They should be able to, go from school to home and not feel like they have to kind of relearn the situation or do things differently. So to me, parents just need to be more engaged. We need to pay attention in working. And I guess I'm kind of biased to the situation because I've always been involved in their schooling and how I can, help and assist and working with the teachers so that me and the teacher are cool. So, the kids will sometimes, they realize the divide, as you mentioned, they realize that disconnect. And sometimes I agree, that's absolutely where we lose them because they realize, oh, this is different than that. So, yeah, that can be a little messy. It gets them off focus. I love the concept of diving into their creativity in the area of education. Can you share a little bit more about some things that you've helped to put in? I know you talked about the three pillars, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
I strongly feel, Lisa, that there are a couple of other things which are very simple strategies. If they can be put into use, they can be a lot more beneficial for our children. Few things, if the parents actually keep these things in mind, I think it can go a long way towards creating or towards nurturing a kind of a generation which would be very, very conscious and mindful. The first is that I feel that we need to focus our energy as parents in nurturing and developing the growth mindset of our children.
Okay.
So, as parents, first of all, we have to understand the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So, a growth mindset is that kind of a mindset where you stretch yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you are ready to experiment, even if you know that you may fail or you can stumble, but then, through that stumbling and through that failure of yours and through that mistake that you commit, you learn a lot.
Absolutely.
So that is a kind of a growth mindset, a bit risky, yes, definitely, but that is something which we have to encourage our children, to have or to develop. And I have seen this, Lisa, that as a parent, if you do not possess a growth mindset, it's very, very difficult to have that growth mindset in your children because children are great imitators.
Yes.
No matter whatever you preach, no matter whatever you tell them to do or you tell them not to do,
Mm-hmm.
they will actually land up doing certain things which they are actually, seeing around
Right.
and learning from you informally. So the first thing that I would like to mention is definitely about the growth mindset. And the second, very important, is, giving a lot of importance to the process rather than the outcome or the result.
Okay.
The result or the outcome is not more important than the process.
Absolutely.
Because it's only when you are going through that process, you learn a lot of things. And as a generation, we have to learn not to stigmatize failures and mistakes.
I
We
agree.
do that often.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand that both failures as well as mistakes are essential ingredients of a productive learning experience. Children learn by committing mistakes. Children learn by encountering a lot of failures. But then just imagine a kind of a situation where, your child is very, very experimental. Your child is very, very courageous. Always trying to do new things. And as a parent, you're very, very restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of judge each and everything. And you sort of restrict your child by saying that you are not supposed to do this. If you do this, then this is what is
Yeah.
going to happen. So ultimately, what is going to happen to the state of mind of your child?
Mm.
So you have to allow your child to fail. You have to allow your child that liberty to commit a lot of mistakes,
That's
because
true.
it's only through failures and mistakes that they learn.
That's true. That's very true. Very true. Well, I absolutely agree with that. I think that a lot of our children, I think about, and I go back to my grandson, since that's the only, kind of baby walking around with us, but he's as smart as he wants to be. He is amazing. But I realize that, to what you were saying, there'll be times when he may be in the kitchen with my husband, and he'll run back and tell on him and say, Lolo told me no. And my response to him is, and that's okay. You're going to be told no. And it's like those no's and those failures. And like you said, the process, that's where they're learning, not the end result, because that's just, they'll respond to the end result and either feel bad, feel good, whatever that is. But the process will even make the result make sense, whether it's that you didn't pass this time or you failed this time. It won't be that, oh my gosh, this is what I got, because they understood the process. And these kids, it just seems that sometimes the kids aren't used to what failure means. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It really is the lesson. It's not a negative. Pass or fail is pass or fail, but it's what you learn from it. You're always going to learn something from a pass or fail.
Also,
Hopefully.
Lisa, I would just like to add that
Hmm.
uh, along with committing mistakes and encountering failures,
Hmm.
children also have to come in terms with a lot of other kinds of emotions, which we as overprotective parents always try and restrict.
Yes.
Our children will be rejected at
Yes.
times. Our children will not be selected everywhere,
Yes. Right.
uh, will not be accepted everywhere. I know that is an uncomfortable emotion,
It is.
but then they have to go through that uncomfortable emotion, because we will not be there all throughout their lives to
That's right.
protect them from each and every uncomfortable, so-called uncomfortable emotions. No, we cannot
Very
do that.
true.
I think as a parent, it's my learning, Lisa, that I have learned that each and everything that I do for my child, in mind, this is going to benefit him
Hmm.
in the short run, will actually harm him in the long. So this has been a great experience for me, I would. So every time I am tempted, every time I am, lured to
Hmm.
rush to my child whenever he feels hurt or something, just to make him, no, no, everything is fine, I kind of stop myself.
Hmm.
And I think that there are certain things with which he has to face those things. I will not be there with him all throughout
Very
his life.
true.
And
Well,
I
that's a huge
cannot,
point.
right, and I cannot, indirectly turn him or her into a kind of a person who will become so very dependent on a
Hmm.
kind of a support system when anything in his or her life goes wrong.
That's
So
right.
I
That's
cannot be
right.
a party to that. So parents have to learn a very, very important lesson of stepping back.
Yep. Absolutely. I love that. It's funny. I'm working on a book that I've been working on for a couple of years. I just haven't had time to finish it. But the title of the book is "Your Invitation Is Not in the Mail." And it kind of talks to that, in that it's true that you might not be invited to the party. And I'm actually, in the book, I'm breaking down the reasons why. Some may be, the reality is everybody's not going to like you. That's just the reality. And we don't train our kids to that. We're always talking about like and love and all of that, but there's an opposite side to that, and you have to be aware that there's another side. And it hits them like a ton of bricks when someone in class doesn't like them and they don't know what to do with that. Because the understanding is that, what do you mean? Everybody at home likes me, everybody at home loves me, but there's a whole nother world out there. And if we don't show them that when you walk out of these doors, there's going to be somebody who doesn't like you and they can't even tell you why. And I talk about sometimes it's because there's all kinds of, like you said, emotions, jealousies, things like that. But we never really, and I get exactly what you're saying. We really don't introduce that to them. And I guess some of it is like the helicopter mom kind of thing, but others is that we're so careful to let them know that they're loved and they're liked that we miss the other side of it, not intentionally, but I absolutely agree with what you're saying, that we have to give them that other side, because it could really harm them to go out into the world and not realize that everyone won't receive you, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's just part of life.
But then, Lisa, as a parent, you can only train your children in all these things only when you are okay with the same feeling.
That's true.
So if I am a kind of a person as a parent, if I always had problems with, uh, accepting rejections, or if
Mm,
I am a kind of a person who cannot come in terms with the fact that there will be people who will not like me, and sadness or being alone is actually, it can be a great feeling. So if I'm not in terms with all those things as a parent, do you think that I will be able to inculcate the same feelings in my children? No, I'll never be able
right,
to do that. And hence it is rightly said that you first go ahead and heal your inner child within. Only then you can, go out and do a lot of amazing stuff to a lot of children around you. What about your own inner child
that's
who is
right, that's
broken
right,
from within, who is not healed, who has not come in terms with certain things? I mean, if the mental age of your inner child within is like, less than 10 years old, then how can
right.
you even think of, doing amazing stuff with, children around you? You can't do that.
That's
But
a
how many
great
of us are
point.
actually ready to work on ourselves? How many
Yes,
of us are ready to invest time and energy in healing the broken and wounded child within? But that is a very important kind of a work that we have to do, not only for ourselves, but for our loved ones. We have to do that.
absolutely. That's a huge challenge, because especially when we become parents, we're very resistant to change at that point. So whatever we haven't, and then I just think about how hard it is for people to even, I'm going to take it another level to, some people are out here, we're raising children, we're doing all these things in the world, but we haven't even gotten to a space where we even like who we are, partly because we haven't got to know who we are. And secretly, we don't like us in a lot of ways. And we've all experienced those moments when we don't like something about us, but we don't even know how to dig in. It's a scary thing to do. But I get what you're saying, is how, if it's scary for you and you've never done it, how are you going to teach your children to get into themselves and understand who they are? And that's a huge challenge. So have you come into situations where so how have you put some things in place on how you kind of approach this? Because I think that this would be a difficult conversation, like you said, closed minds, and they're like, well, no, that's not it. So how do you approach conversations where you're introducing this? Because I absolutely understand what you're saying. I do.
I always felt in the last 23 years, when I had been, closely connected with the sector of education, I always felt that education primarily has to be for the parents first,
Hmm.
and then for the children. So if
Okay.
we can really educate the parents in the true sense of the term, I think 80% of our work is already done.
Okay.
I'm not saying making the parents literate. I'm trying to say that making the parents educated in the true sense of the term.
Absolutely.
So education here means a lot of things.
Hmm.
First of all, being conscious,
Yes.
being extremely self aware, and being conscious and mindful. of what is it that you are trying to look in your child. So when you're, uh, let me just give you an example. When your child throws a tantrum,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you feel that your child is disrespectful towards you. So what is it that is actually triggering you?
Hmm.
You have to step back and you have to ask this question to yourself. Why are you getting triggered?
Mm.
So, what is it that you are looking at when you are seeing your child in that, reactive mode? So, our children, in fact, Lisa, it's not only children. It's
Mm-hmm.
about all kinds of intimate relationships that we have.
True.
All our intimate relationships offer a kind of a mirror to us,
Hmm.
and they offer a great opportunity for learning if we only approach our relationships in a very proper and authentic manner.
Okay.
I've always believed in my life, Lisa, that it can be any relationship in your life. It can be your relationship with your child, it can be your relationship with your spouse, it can be your relationship even with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
But if a relationship is not allowing you to grow as a person, and if that relationship is not allowing you to be an authentic version of yourself, I think it's time for you to reconsider and recheck once.
Yep.
So, this is something which I've always believed. So, uh, I know I may be judged by what I'm saying right now, but this has helped me in
Mm-hmm.
my life. So, I'm a kind of a person who's very, very introspective. I ask a lot of questions to myself at different stages in my life. So, is this relationship helping me to grow? It's not about being selfish. It's
That's
not about finding what is it that I'm gaining out of this relationship. No. Am I able to grow?
mm.
Am I able to turn into my. Can I be authentic with this person? When I'm with this particular person, am I being authentic?
Yes.
Can I be my real self? Can I be
Yes.
my authentic self when I am with this person? I think that can help us a lot.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Um, you know what? I think that because I'm very observant in those kind of situations, but like I said, I'm a communicator. I observe a lot. And I watch how people interact with each other. But all of this is for me to learn, and you pay attention to how people approach certain situations, and I also think beyond that, and how is it received? Because but at the same time, I always pay attention to how I am in certain spaces. Am I feeling comfortable enough to just, joke like I usually joke, or am I feeling guarded? So I'm not necessarily saying, because it shows up very differently. And when you're in tune, like what you talked about, when you're self-aware and you're in tune to who you are, you can immediately tell when this is not a comfortable space for me, this is not a safe space for me. I don't feel like, oh, I better watch and you do feel more comfortable when you don't have to necessarily watch what you say, because authentically, you're just a fun loving person. So you say things and people receive it. But when you feel guarded, like, oh, I don't know if I should, then those sometimes are spaces that you really don't want to go to anymore. And I think it is involved with your spouses, with your kids, even around your kids with other kids that are from other families, and how they interchange. And I'm always very observant about them being comfortable in our space. I don't want any children to come over and feel, I want them to kind of follow the rules of the house, and that there's certain things we don't allow here, but at the same time, be yourself, enjoy yourself. I don't want you to walk on eggshells. And but that goes back to I like the concept of, this is really about the parents, because we are pouring into them, whether that be good stuff or bad stuff. So when we look at our kids and we start to blame them for things, or why are you this, we really have to say, okay, so what was your role in this? And I do approach things that way. So even in a situation where someone else can be wrong, or off, or whatever it is, I don't deal with that. I deal with me. So, like you said, what is it that's bothering me about this situation? Like you said, what's triggering me? What's making me so emotional about this? But you got to bring it back to you. I think that's the only way you can really approach things authentically. Otherwise, it's
Everything,
just surface.
Lisa, each
Yep,
and everything that is actually happening in your mindscape.
that's true. Yep.
Everything will ultimately come back to you.
Hmm.
And I think this has also helped me a lot that, uh, being introspective, as I told you, we have to be, introspective. We have to ask a lot of questions.
Hmm.
And also, as I told you, that consistently asking this question that, am I being comfortable or am I being my authentic self? Am I able to grow,
Yes.
or am I being restrictive?
Hmm.
So these are, I think, very very important. What should I say? Parameters.
Hmm.
It should be important parameters for us
Absolutely.
to maybe to take vital decisions in days to come.
To make the best decisions, I think that's, to me, that's the best approach. Of course, I have to admit, I'm confessing that I probably haven't come to a lot of these realities for myself until I was grown. But I'm using this moment to, now I have a 3-year-old grandson. So now is a perfect time to, when you know better, you do better. So it's like, okay, so now how do I pour into him so that some of the things that I didn't realize until I was plus 40, 50, whatever it may be, uh, but they're so valuable in the lessons that even now my children are grown, but I still go back and I pour into them because it's like never too late to learn. Clearly, it's never too late to learn, and change those patterns, that maybe you didn't do the right thing. Because I do remember times when I was triggered by something my children did, and I was so much more emotional about it than they were, and couldn't figure out, like, why are you not upset about this? But that was about me, and I didn't pick that up. I was just like, you all are not getting it. But I was like, okay, so no, what's going on with you, Lisa, that this is really upsetting to you? And I think it goes into
You know
those.
why this happens?
Uh-huh.
This happens because, especially this happens with our relationship with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because as parents, we do have a child of fantasy,
Yes.
which is very different from the child which we have in reality. You have this kind of a mental construct that my child is going to be like this. He can never be otherwise, because he's my child. He's my trophy.
Right.
He is actually my trophy, which I have to showcase in front of the exhibit, in front of the entire world, to show to the entire world that I'm a winner, right? And then if things are
Right.
going wrong, that is hurting me because it has got everything to do with my imagination and my fantasy. I
Mm-hmm.
have never ever, conversed with my reality. What is the reality? We have to come in terms with the reality. Have we been able to accept the relationships in our life in their authenticity and reality?
That's
That's a
true.
very big question.
Oh,
That is
that's.
why a lot of relationships in our lives are going wrong, Lisa.
Mm-hmm. Well, you hit the nail on the head with that, because like I said, I am guilty of that. And I didn't catch it at first. But then I remembered, like, yeah, this triggered me, and I had to learn how to, as we talked about before, fall back and understand that some of this has nothing to do with me. They're people. They're their own authentic selves as well. So we cannot, on some level, control every single part of them. But I like what you mentioned, as far as we do kind of, look at our children as, you have to represent me, which on some level, yes, yeah, generally speaking, but we feel that way. So, and it is kind of restrictive, where we're like, okay, so you got to make sure you do this and you make sure you do this, because when you go out, we're seeing it as us. And we don't leave room for them to also be them. which may not be something that you would have done, or you might have done it that way. And we sometimes don't make it a safe space for it to be okay that it wasn't what I struggled with that. I really did. I see now where you do have to be open to allow, and that's another lesson to me, that you have to be strong enough to allow other people to live in their own authenticity. And that's a hard struggle for parents. I mean,
Oh, that you can only do that, Lisa, when you are actually leading an authentic life yourself.
that's true. Very true. Very
You
true.
can only value authenticity when you are actually living by authenticity.
And
Otherwise, you can.
that's true. And I think a lot of people aren't, because a lot of people aren't, as we talked about, self-aware. And that's where it starts. And you mentioned that with the parents, getting them to a space where they're good with who they are. And now I can, you know, pour into you and allow you to be who you are. And we both be okay. So I love this conversation. This has been absolutely wonderful. So let me, I do want you to let everybody know where they can stay in contact with you. But are there any projects or things that you've been working on lately in this field, or even other things that you want to share?
Yeah, actually, Lisa, apart from being an academician,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think you must be knowing that I'm an inspirational speaker. I speak
Yes.
on various platforms, and it's not only about education, but
Yes.
it's about a whole lot of other things that I speak about. But yes, being a very, very passionate educationist, I believe that education is not something which can happen in isolation. So everything is like connected,
Mm-hmm.
interconnected. So, well, speaking is something that I'm regularly, almost regularly involved in. I do a lot of writing as
Okay.
well. And yes, even after 23 years, I have not left teaching in that sense
Okay.
of the term, because teaching has always remained my passion. So I feel that every day when I'm there in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
with my students, that is when I get a lot of happiness and joy from within.
Wow. So even
So,
23 years later, you're still in the classroom.
yeah, I am.
And I will say, my son graduated from college last year. He's actually in the classroom now too. I'm really proud of him, because I know being a teacher is such an amazing thing, and I valued my relationships with my teachers. They really did mold me on levels that, people always assume it's just parents. But my teachers had a tremendous role in who I am today. And it's interesting that in English and writing and research papers, and because I'm a writer, so I've always loved to write. And yeah, that's just been where my space is. And my son actually said that his favorite teacher was his English teacher as well, which I was surprised about, but she's been a guest on my show, as a matter of fact, and his fifth grade teacher. And it meant something to me when he said she was my favorite teacher. And even, now 24 years old, there's still a connection there. And he was able to reach out to her and ask her for some advice when he was becoming a substitute teacher, and then became a teacher. He has his own class right now. And the fact that she was still involved, it was like, those are the kind of teacher experiences that make a difference in everyone's life. When you're, but though that's a teacher that's really engaged and really wants to see their students, winning in this world. So I thank you personally for staying the course, because I know it can be a difficult journey. And sometimes you feel like that you're not just teaching the classroom, you're actually, raising on some level. Teachers have been given so much responsibility because of that outsourcing, and things like that. So I value not only education, but teachers, because it's a huge role in everybody's life, whether they realize it or not. So I thank you for all that you have been doing, and will continue to follow and support you, and definitely welcome you back to Luncheon with Lisa anytime. I know you've been on with Dr. Tashika Green and Michelle Bolden Hammond. They are both friends of mine and have some dynamic shows. And I've watched you and thought, this is a conversation that should always continue. So where can they find you to learn more about what you're doing? Because we want to stay connected. So how can everyone find you?
Absolutely. I would love to remain connected, and I am very well connected with you, Lisa. You
Yes.
cannot deny that. So, so in spite of quite an engaging schedule that I have on a daily basis, I'm a person who's quite active on social media platforms.
Yes.
So anybody can find me there on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Insta.
Okay.
So any like-minded people or anybody who would like to get connected with me can definitely get connected through the social media platforms.
Okay. You're on Facebook and Instagram, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds great. Again, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm glad we had this time, especially during Women's History Month. It was very important to me to really highlight some women who are making their mark in the world in a wonderful way. So thank you for your yes coming on to Luncheon with Lisa. And I would like to remind everybody to continue to come back to check out Luncheon with Lisa every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our amazing, as you can see, we have some amazing guests that have some incredible insight, and they're doing things. This is not just about talking about it. It's about doing something. And if you follow Dr. Shauli, you'll see she is doing something all the time. She's not just talking about it. She's making things happen. I love what the idea of the creativity and education combination. I think that's something that I would love to have you come back and talk more about. And maybe possibly get some students in the room, and let's have some communication students and parents or something. So I would definitely like to work something like that out.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yes, I love that. So we will definitely have Dr. Shauli back, but I thank you all for supporting and tuning in, and we will see you next Thursday. Have a great weekend.